This audio-only podcast of All Things Unexplained was recorded live with audience interaction. Be sure to check it out on YouTube at All Things Unexplained. While you're there, consider giving us a subscribe and a comment. And remember, All Things Unexplained remains completely free. Hitting that subscribe button just means you'll never miss a new video. And now, enjoy this audio-only podcast of All Things Unexplained.
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's.
Did the CIA write Wind of Change by the Scorpions?
As humans busied themselves about the various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied.
Dr. Loeb, what percentage chance do you give it that you have indeed uncovered extraterrestrial or non-human technology?
With infinite complacence, people went about their affairs, yet across an immense ethereal gulf, intellects vast and unsympathetic drew their plans against us.
All of a sudden, a stick out of nowhere landed right in front of us, and there was no tree, nothing overhead. Something threw it at us.
Yeah. What's your hot take on Travis Taylor?
I've got an exclusive for you guys if you want it about the Alaska.
We do.
Okay.
Dr. Taylor was revealed to be the chief scientist of the UAP task force with the Pentagon.
All Things Unexplained.
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.
All right, unexplained ones, and welcome back to All Things Unexplained. I am Dr. Mounts, and I am ecstatic to be joined tonight by my pastor and my friend. I guess I'm obligated for him to be my friend. None other than Brent. No, I'm kidding. Legit
It's
friend. Brent,
not an obligation.
Levy.
Yeah, we don't have to be friends, but you are. You are. So thanks. Hey, Tim.
How's it
Glad
going
to be
tonight?
here. It's
Yes,
great.
that's right.
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing awesome. And I should say, Brent from Let's Go with Brent. You should tell everybody how to check you out there.
Yeah. Let's Go with Brent is my exclusively Disney and travel-based content on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, all of the places, including letsgowithbrent.com. So, that's where you can find me.
That's terrific. And, it's appropriate because why are we here tonight? To delve into some mysteries that All Things Unexplained has dared not go before, and that is the mysteries of Disney.
Dun, dun, dun.
And
Wishes come true, man. This has been this is a dream come true for me.
Oh, that's great. I really appreciate that. I want to say shout out to our friends, UFO Busters in Australia. Make sure to check out their YouTube channel. And they said, hey, friend, loving the new logo. Thanks. I'm going to give Grok a little credit for the new logo. It's up here above me. I think it's pretty cool. And I should mention, this is big news. The All Things Unexplained Twitter account is now safe to visit. Again, that's at AT Unexplained. We were hacked shortly after posting some things we discovered in the Epstein files. But we're back now. We're back and crypto free. So you can visit our Twitter account again. And they even updated our logo for us. So pretty excited about that. And we've got Let's Go with Brent here saying, what's up, UFO? Hey, that's you. Look at there. You're multitasking tonight. Oh, are we streaming to your channel? I forgot to ask about that.
I've invited a whole bunch of friends. So not exclusively probably, but it feels like it. I got a lot of people on.
Let's see. Well, you could probably set that up. I don't know. Did we forget to set that up, Brent, to stream to your
I'll
YouTube?
figure it out, man.
All right. Well, we're good. And I have a couple of new fancy things tonight. One, we've got a QR code because our special guest tonight is none other than author David Koenig, who I'll properly introduce after the commercial break. He writes about Disney mysteries. And if you scan the QR code up there with your device, it'll take you right to his website at Bonaventure Press. And I'll just go ahead and put it up right now. Have you ever been to a Disney park? So to answer the poll, just type in the comments your answer. 1, yes, many times. 2, once or twice. 3, planning to go. Or 4, never. So that's our poll for right now. And Brent, I want to remind everybody that make sure to subscribe to the channel at All Things Unexplained. Subscribe to Brent's YouTube channel. Let's go with Brent. And plus comment on the video, and that will enter you into a chance at our giveaways, which we'll talk more about at the end of the show. So, Brent, if you're ready to get this started, we've got a couple of quick commercials, and then author David Koenig will be joining us.
Let's go.
All Things Unexplained is free to watch on YouTube and listen to wherever you get your podcasts. If you would like to support our show, you can visit our YouTube store. Additionally, you can find us on Venmo under All Things Unexplained. Be sure to check out our website, allthingsunexplained.com. All proceeds from the sales of Dr. Mounce's books on Amazon and Audible also go straight to our show.
Want to be a real part of the show? One of the best ways you can support us is by visiting our official store. All you have to do is head over to unexplainedswag.com. There you can pick up podcast t-shirts, podcast hoodies, coffee mugs, and lots more, including our best-selling UFO t-shirt and UAP t-shirt. Just head over to unexplainedswag.com. You can also get to the store from our main website, allthingsunexplained.com, and from wherever you're listening or watching to us at. All right, Brent. So we are joined tonight by author David Koenig. Raised in the shadow of the Matterhorn, David Koenig has become the theme park industry's best-known outsider, writing 6 unauthorized books about the inner workings of the Mouse House. From his first book, the best-selling Mouse Tales, to his latest Disney opus, The 55ers, David has spent more than 30 years scraping off the pixie dust to give fans an unvarnished but always appreciative peek inside the magic. David is also editorial director of 526 Media Group and a sporadic contributor to MiceChat.com. His books from Bonaventure Press, which you can link up to just by scanning the QR code up there in the corner, include Mouse Tales, more Mouse Tales, Mouse Under Class, Reality Land, The People versus Disneyland, The 55ers, Danny Kaye, King of Jesters, Shooting Columbo, and the recently released Unshot Columbo, I should say. And it is our distinct pleasure to welcome David Koenig to All Things Unexplained. David, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, guys. Very delighted to be here.
Oh, great. We really appreciate you joining. I think, David, what I'd like to ask first is, how did you get going into this Disney stuff?
Well, I was raised in Orange County, about 20 minutes south of Disneyland. So Disneyland was always, top of mind. If you live anywhere near it, it's always, everybody knows what it is, where it is. And it was always, I just always been fascinated with Disney. It was always a cool place, always curious about it. And I got interested in writing about it when I was a journalism major at a nearby university, Cal State Fullerton. It has the nickname Cal State Disneyland because literally thousands of the students there at any given time are working part-time at Disneyland at the time. And in my last semester there before graduating, a bunch of my friends who worked there all went out on strike. And so that to me was eye-opening because these were guys who loved Disneyland, and they were all, on the news and in the paper with picket signs with Walt and Mickey crying. What are you doing, Walt? Turning your back on the family. And I just thought it was the strangest thing that somebody had to start writing about and saving their stories.
Oh, yeah. Well, once you started researching things in the Disney multiverse, what surprised you the most, David? Like, what are some of the things that you were like, wow, I did not know that?
Yeah, well, to me, the biggest thing of all, and this is in the late 80s, there was no um, internet. There was, there had never been an unofficial book written about Disneyland or Disney World, anything like that. I was the first one that I knew of to attempt this, and I was just this. So this is in the late 80s when I started out, and into the early 90s doing the primary research on my first book. And the biggest shocker to me was just the extent that the Disney company would go to hide all its dirty laundry and its inner workings. And it was just so, I mean, it's still that way a little bit. They're obviously very concerned about their image and such, but I think over the years they've come to grips with the fact that, hey, people know this isn't really magic. This is, and for, they were just, well, some of us, 2 out of 3, but, they were just determined, and all the people who worked there, all the cast members were on board with protecting this image and not sharing any stories. The first person who was ever killed at Disneyland, that news didn't even make it into the newspaper. I mean, and there would be people would be, suffer a fatal heart attack, and rather than call an ambulance, they'd sort of drag the body off stage before, bringing in. And there was a stabbing there once, and the guy was lying there dying behind the Matterhorn. And rather than them rush in an ambulance, they sort of cleared a path and slowly snuck in this unmarked white van. And okay, nobody's looking. We can get this dying man onto the, everything was like that, and everybody was on board with that. And that was just, to me, shocking that their image was so important. It was a matter of life and death, and that was the most important thing to them was the show, and not doing anything that would take the guests out of the experience.
Right. Now, when did Disney World and Disneyland actually open?
Well, Disneyland opened in 1955. So Walt Disney, it was his idea to open that. It was a fraction of the size that it is now. It had, all of 17 attractions, which is about, a quarter of what it has now, and just a fraction of the amount of land it consumes. And then into the 1960s, got the idea that he wanted to not just open the perfect theme park, but what if he could open the perfect city? And so that was his idea in moving to Florida. Was originally he wanted, he didn't care. He already perfected a theme park with Disneyland. He didn't have interest in doing another theme park. He wanted to have the perfect school and the perfect business and the perfect hospital and the perfect transportation system, and find out if all these things that he was getting old and had lung cancer and was nearing the end of his life. And he just, his desire was for this, this perfect city. But as sort of, just like in Disneyland, you have the weenie, the castle that's like the shiny thing that drags people in. He was convinced that his weenie, the thing that would drag people into this perfect city, was building another Disneyland on the East Coast. So that's how that started. He died about 5 years before the project was completed, but after they had broken ground. And the first thing that opened was the Magic Kingdom in 1971. And then, every 10 years or so, they'd add another park to keep building it out.
One of my favorite stories, David, you probably know this, and maybe it's one of those legends, but it was something I learned when I went through my training as a cast member. I worked at Haunted Mansion at Magic Kingdom about 20 years ago, and was that when he was purchasing the land in Florida, if they knew that Walt Disney was looking at land, the prices would skyrocket, everybody would come. And so he actually purchased it under a pseudonym, the pseudonym being MT, the initials MT, and then Lot, Lott. So MT Lot was the pseudonym that he used, supposedly, to purchase the land for the Florida project there.
That's absolutely true. One of my books is called Reality Land, which is about the inside story of Walt Disney World. And I got the opportunity to speak with the fellows who actually, the 2 lawyers who actually were in charge of, putting on dark glasses and doing these flights out. He couldn't fly to Florida because people would go, oh, Walt Disney's in town, what's going on here? So he had, these secret agent lawyers go out for him and scout out the land and make the offer, behind the, in the alley, where nobody's looking for the land, and set up a bunch of different dummy companies. And an MT lot was absolutely, that's true. That was one of the dummy companies. He set up about a half dozen of them. One was, because it was off Interstate 4, the land he wanted. One was called I-4, AYE, FOUR, I-4, because it was off I-4. And that's the only way he could do it. And then right when they were close to getting almost everything they wanted for land, then the news broke. Oh, this is, people started putting together 2 and 2. Oh, this guy works for this guy. Oh, this guy. When I interviewed Walt, he let this slip, and they were finally able to catch on at the end. But fortunately, he had bought most of the land he needed to be able to make his own city.
Yeah, that reminds me of an Agatha Christie character from one of her novels. I believe they went by U.N. Owen, so they were unknown.
Unknown, nice.
In the novel, so I guess Walt was channeling maybe some Agatha Christie stuff there. Pretty sneaky of Walt. And, I have to wonder, David, I mean, they opened in the 50s at Disneyland, and we know how secretive they are now. I mean, do you think that they've evolved we know they've grown, but how does it compare now to, let's say, the other decades, 50s, 60s, in terms of just popularity and secretiveness?
Well, when it first opened, most of the people who hired on there figured, this thing's like a carnival. It's going to last, 3 months, 6 months. A lot of people wouldn't hire on, not because Disney didn't want him, but they were afraid to leave their job because they figured, it sounds fun, but, I can't work at a carnival as a career. And they were convinced it wasn't going to, so many of the people were convinced it wasn't going to make it. And in that
Which
first
was true
summer,
for the investors too, for many of the investors ahead of time, wouldn't do it, who Disney approached. Sorry to cut you off, David. Yeah.
No, that's 100% true. Bank of America and others would extend them a certain amount of money and then were out, and they had to get really crafty in how they got the rest of the money, with personal loans, with Walt, cleaning out his savings account and his insurance policy. And then finally, with them basically selling ads inside the park through sponsorships. It's something that the first president of Disneyland had learned when he worked on the World's Fair, was what they do is they get, sponsors, what they call lessees, to sponsor attractions or restaurants, or, okay, you can have the concession for the soda. And so that's where that came from, was just Walt didn't want to do any of that. He didn't want commercials in Disneyland, but he had no choice if he wanted to get the place open. And it took a couple of years and then took off. And then it was really in about the mid 80s when Michael Eisner took over that they figured out how to market the place in such a way that it went from popular to, now the place is packed. Yeah. You're there all the time. I'm sure there's a lot of people there every single day.
Demand is high. Yeah.
We're joined tonight by author David Koenig. We're so happy to have him here with us. We've got a poll up. We want you to let us know, have you ever been to a Disney park? Many times, once or twice, planning to go, or sadly, never. I know our friends in Australia said that they've always wanted to go to Disneyland, but America won't let them in. I am so sorry about that. UFO busters. Makes you wonder what they know, though. No offense, UFO busters, but y'all are doing a good job out there spotting UFOs in the outback. And we've got a QR code here. And if you'll scan this QR code, it will take you to Bonaventure Press, where David Koenig is an author, and you can pick out all his books there and buy them in many different ways. So scan the QR code to Bonaventure Press and visit them to get some David Koenig books. David, Disney seems to have a way of growing myths, and I've been to a lot of other theme parks. I won't call them by name. I just got back from one in Tennessee, and I'd never heard any myths about that theme park. There's one in Virginia that I've been to. It's pretty good. I didn't hear any myths about that, but so what is it about Disney parks that makes myths grow so strongly?
Well, I think part of it is naturally the popularity. Everybody knows it everywhere. But I think it starts with the fact that it itself is built and designed on myths itself. That was the whole idea for Disneyland. Was Walt said, um, you know, I'm making all these movies that people can watch. I want them to be part of the movie. I want them to step into the myths and the legends and live it themselves rather than, passively watching some other characters have this adventure. And he knew that the classic fairy tales and myths and legends and popular fictional characters and journeys, these were the things that just made an automatic connection. It's one reason why so many of the movies made nowadays are sequels to something else, because the story is sort of pre-established, pre-marketed. It usually doesn't make as good of a movie, but it often makes as much money because people know what to expect and they have a sort of a pre-connection to it. And then I think it also lends into the fact that Disney being so secretive and people becoming suspicious, the more someone else won't tell you things that you think they should tell you, the more you like, what's going on there? And it leaves a lot of room for people to, imaginations to run wild, or for people, now, why did they do that? I wonder what the story is with that. And sometimes there is some hijinks or hanky-panky going on behind the scenes, and even more frequently, it's just people trying to put two and two together, and it becomes all sorts of numbers.
Right. Well, anybody that's ever been to a Disney park is well aware that one thing that really sets them apart is once you're there, you are engaged in a totally immersive environment. It seems like it's beyond a theme park, just all the bombardment of your senses. It just hits you from everywhere. And it seems like anything you could imagine or want or dream about, right? Like it's there. And you're in it. So, what is your take? Was Disney kind of the first to tap into this magic of having an immersive environment for people to get lost in?
Yeah, I think so. And it was part, the music, the smells, everything you look. Walt was almost Nazi about it, and that he didn't want anything that conflicted with the theme of the era. He wanted people to really feel in Frontierland that we're in the 1800s in the Old West, and even the merchandise that people were allowed to sell at the shops, it had to be, would they have had that type of thing? And he would prevent certain stores because of the theme, from selling like batteries or film or thing that people normally wanted, anywhere they were. He was against that, because it would take people out, and he just wanted people completely enveloped.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, Walt Disney himself, he kind of has, a lore about him as being a storyteller and a myth maker. And I've heard a little bit about his childhood. I mean, do you know much about Walt's childhood and his upbringing and kind of what led him down this path?
Yeah, he was a naturally precocious, inquisitive, creative kid who grew up. A part of it was the most formative part of his youth was in a city called Marceline, Missouri, which is the classic small town. You can still go there today, and there's a Walt Disney displays and a Walt Disney museum and such, which was basically Main Street. And that's all his ideas. For Main Street came from his childhood in Marceline, and his love of the adventures of Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn, influenced Frontierland and the Rivers of America, and his curiosity about space and other things influenced Tomorrowland. So it was just whatever he could think of that engaged him that he found to be these stories that he could suck people into.
Brent, have you ever been to that town in Missouri?
I have been to Marceline. Yeah, when I went to Columbus, Missouri, probably about a decade ago. Columbia, Missouri. Is that right? And anyway, on the way to back from the airport, we went around. We went off the beaten path, 2 hours out of our way to get to Marceline so that we could visit the museum that's there, which is really cool. They have some great exhibits to see the inspiration for Main Street USA there, and also to sit under the tree that he would dream under as a child. Large, can't remember if it was an oak tree or whatever, but there was a tree there, and so we got to sit under there and be right where he was as a child. It's a great little place.
Yeah.
You know, my friends and I were on our way back from a St. Louis Cardinals game one year. This was in the early 90s, I guess. And we decided to take some back roads, and we ended up in the hometown of Popeye, of all places. I have no idea what that town was called now, though. But they had this big bronze statue of Popeye in the town. So, very interesting place. I wonder if it's anywhere close to Walt Disney's hometown, but another interesting cartoon character from there. Well, David, I wonder, you know, in all this research you've done, it seems like with these Disney parks, there's this mix of nostalgia and fantasy. And, you know, I feel like that's really went to another level now because we've got, all the Star Wars characters mixed in now too. So the fantasy has just went to another level. And the nostalgia, right? Like, wow, talk about nostalgic, the Star Wars universe mixed in with the Disney universe. What is your research shown, I mean, in terms, or what's your opinion about the psychological effect that this has on park goers in terms of experiencing this mix of nostalgia and fantasy all together?
Well, I think it is. I mean, it sort of starts with Walt and Main Street. That was sort of the feeling he was trying to get, was to tie people to their own childhood as he tied it to himself, as he sucked him into that story. And that was so supposed to, you walk in, you're greeted by Main Street, and it's supposed to take you back to your childhood. It's now, none of us were a child in, 1900 anymore, but that was, when it opened in the 50s, that was, if you were 60 years old or so, like Walt, that's where it would take you. And it just, nostalgia has become, to me, the most popular marketing strategy Disney has, more than when they open a new ride. Like when, and Brent will probably remember this, some years ago when they first closed or shut down the Main Street Electrical Parade at Disneyland. Their plan was for it to glow away and never come back again, because they were going to replace it with some high-tech, different entertainment. So this is your last chance. Just this summer is the last time we'll show the Main Street Electrical Parade. It was the busiest time they've ever had in the history of Disneyland. They had over 17 million people come that year, and they kept extending the last day, extending it for a year and a half. It was this going away party, and it was the most successful promotion they've ever had, was killing one of their beloved rides. And it was so popular that they ended up sending it to Florida, and then they brought it back here, and then they sent it there, and they brought it back here again. And it's still not complete. There's still vestiges of it left, but it's just, as people have grown up with Disneyland, such a big part of their life, it's, and that's your entertainment story. That becomes your life. That's the memories of your life. And while it's a very different place, it has so much that's the same as when we were kids. And for me, one of the greatest experiences, if not the greatest experience I've ever had, was going with my little kids when they were little, and sitting on the curb to watch the Main Street Electrical Parade, and just having that feeling that they're having the exact same experience that I had when I mean, how many things in life can you have, share that with them, for them to have the exact same thing that you shared, 30 years before? It was just a touch, just thinking about it.
And when Walt Disney World just recently introduced a brand new nighttime parade called Disney Starlight. The very beginning of the parade plays just the little hook from Main Street Electrical Parade to give it just that nod to nostalgia.
Yeah.
And when I first heard it, I had chills.
Yeah.
I know that song. I remember that song.
That's a perfect example, because that's that same Walt Disney theory or strategy of having that Main Street, that nostalgic lead in that pulls you in, and then you can share all the other adventures, spoking out from there.
That was a great point about the nostalgia. I didn't even think about it that way. And by the way, I want to remind everybody, hi, CJ. CJ's in the chat now. And she pointed out, where's the poll? The poll is here in the corner, and you just have to answer it in the chat. And we just want to know, have you ever been to a Disney park? Just let us know in the chat. Our friends UFO Busters are not allowed in the United States, so they haven't been. Oh, maybe they could go to the one in Japan. Isn't there one in Japan? Anyway, good luck, UFO Busters, for getting in Japan. But I wasn't. Oh, and scan the QR code to get to Bonaventure Press. It's up there, a new widget we've got. But I wasn't even thinking about nostalgia in terms of, rides being closed down, for example. What a brilliant marketing ploy. Or maybe it's not a ploy. What a brilliant marketing strategy they stumbled upon, right, David? And also, I'll tell you another thing that does the same thing, I think, is seasons. So I remember when I was in Disneyland in January, oh man, it was a big thing. Some of the rides still had the Christmas lights up. So you had to go do those because of the Christmas lights, right? Like, it was this really big thing. Did they purposely do some of this now? Like, oh man, maybe it's time to shut something down and get a big boost,
Yeah, I hope not. That was my fear, was that when they killed the Main Street Electrical Parade and it was so successful that, oh no, are they going to kill other beloved? Is Jungle Cruise next? They're going to kill all these beloved attractions just to get a entertainment boost or an attendance boost. But like you had mentioned, a lot of the seasonal promotions, like the Christmas decorations and stuff. I know Epcot basically, survives on, the Food and Wine Festival and other things, like, all these different promotions that they do. So there's always one leading into another, and that's been going on for decades. That was one of the big Michael Eisner ideas in the 80s that really got the park to sort of take the next jump from being a place that drew 5 or 6 million people a year to a place that drew 10 million plus a year. And now we're at the point where I think it averages like 16 or so. It's full all the time.
I tell you what,
Disney's been at these shenanigans for a long time. I mean, think about the what they used to do with the VHS tapes, right? Where they would release movies for a period of time, these animated films that would then go into the vault. There would be a date, act now, you have to buy it now because it's going back into the vault and you won't see it again until the 25th anniversary or 30th, et cetera. So so creating this manufactured demand rooted in nostalgia it's been their game for a long time. Yeah.
Well, even longer than that, because that idea came from what they used to do with their theatrical films before there was VHS. Is their animated classics were on a schedule to be released once every 7 years. They would release Snow White in, say, 1970 or whatever the year it was, and it would run in theaters for several months, and then they would take it away, and you could not see it anywhere. It was not on TV. It was not no place to see it. And then 7 years later, it would come out again, and kids and people would, oh no, we got to see Snow White. I'm not going to be a kid anymore if I don't see it now.
And you got to get that VHS, right? And those things would go for $1, right? Like, I don't know when eBay started, but you get some of those VHS tapes on eBay. Man, you talking about a big purchase right there. And I tell you what, one of the things I really appreciate about somewhere like Epcot, you brought up Epcot, I really appreciate as an adult the food and the drinks there at Epcot and just the adult things too. The theme park I just got back from in Tennessee, which I had a good time, but let's just say it was a dry county at the theme park. and the food options were limited. And I found myself like not having nearly as good of a time as I should have been having just because I couldn't, within a few feet, stumble upon an amazing delicacy, or travel into an outer space themed cantina and get a drink with the kids who are having some mixed alien snacks with me, like it was I could tell I was really missing that. And I want to bring a poll up now, a new poll, and this will kind of carry us over into something Brent wanted to talk about, and that's hidden spaces and secrets of Disney. In our new poll, do you believe Disney parks are actually haunted? Just type your answer in the chat. Yes, no, not sure. I've experienced something. Hey, if you've experienced something, let us know what it was. And now David Brent was wanting to talk a little bit about some of that sort of stuff right there.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was a cast member, there was a legend that somebody had died while building Pirates of the Caribbean, a cast member named George. And the legend was that every morning the opening cast had to greet George, say hello to George when they walked in. Otherwise, it was going to be a rough day on the seas of Pirates of the Caribbean. And so that they're I think part of the haunted, part of these legends, and part of the mystique comes from just how, as you talked about, those places that are known and those places that are unknown and all of the connections therein. And so curious about your thoughts on whether any of the Disney parks are haunted, and then we can get into the secret spaces conversation too.
Right. Yeah. I won't speak to my opinion on whether there's really ghosts exist or anything like that, but I will say that many people I talked to, including a large number, if not a large percentage of the cast members I've ever interviewed over the years, are all in, completely believe it. They go, how can you not work at Disneyland after hours for any amount of time and not believe in ghosts? Because George was the most famous, the one from Pirates of the Caribbean at Disney World. Disneyland has its own family of ghosts supposedly as well. So many people have told me about a ghost named Mary, which is supposedly based on true or not, we don't know. But supposedly this little girl who was like 7 or 8 years old used to love Disneyland, but she died when she was young and her parents came and sprinkled her ashes on the Haunted Mansion or somewhere in Disneyland. And ever since, in the vicinity of the Haunted Mansion or in Pirates of the Caribbean or Critter Country, that sort of general area, cast members would always report, oh no, another Mary sighting. They'd see it, it'd be late at night and they'd see this little girl off in the distance walking toward them. And they'd be like, wait, we're close. What is she? And they get closer and then they turn away and she'd vanish. And so many stories about that. Most of the stories, the ghost stories that I've heard, revolve in areas that are either have a naturally spooky element to them, like Pirates of the Caribbean, where all the skeletons are, or Haunted Mansion, something like that, or sites at Disneyland where someone was killed, where someone died. There's been about a dozen people or so over the years who've been killed at Disneyland. Fortunately, none for many, many years. And those are the common places where like there was a girl who was smashed between the walls of the America Sings attraction. So you'll hear a lot of people say, oh, we saw her, spirit there. And probably the most common one I've heard is in, it's currently a stock room for the Star Trader store in Tomorrowland, which is an upper floor. When you first walk into Tomorrowland, on the right, over the Star Trader store, which is just past Star Tours, near a stock room. Just people are always sharing stories about a ghost there, and they're convinced that it's the ghost of the teenager who died on one grad night in 1967. It was a boy who was the People Mover ride used to run through that area, and he was jumping from car to car and slipped and fell between the cars. And those People Mover cars don't stop for nothing. They would just, no matter what was in their way, they just kept going. That was how it was. There were no brakes or anything like that. There was no security sensors or anything like that. There was just electricity that went through the track that powered the vehicles. So they kept running and ran over him. And that's just about the area where people often say they see the ghost.
Have you heard about Little Boy Blue?
No, tell me about Little Boy Blue.
Little Boy Blue, same similar concept as Mary in Disneyland. But Little Boy Blue was a friend just texted me to remind me that I used to work with, was a ghost in the unload area at Haunted Mansion at Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So that's one. Yeah. And curious too. I mean, there have been a fair amount of deaths recently. I want to be sensitive, but in Walt Disney World, specifically of late, there were some folks who died at the Contemporary Resort recently. And so it makes me wonder, in what ways these legends may continue to evolve as the years go on as well. Certainly tragic situations.
Oh, absolutely. And Disney World is such a big property. And there's so much room for people to either get into mischief, or like the problem with the Contemporary is there's been about a half dozen people who've jumped off the 14th floor there. And that never has a good ending. So yeah, that kind of thing happens. And then a big story that traces into a lot of the ghost stories have been people who deposit ashes in the parks from a loved one. And this story that people have, distributed their ashes has been an unofficial tale for many years. And it actually finally got proved 100% beyond a shadow of a doubt in 2002 in Disneyland. There was, this is not long after 9/11, and crazy people are sending people envelopes with anthrax poison in them. And so everybody's all on high alert. And what had happened is, and this is in police reports and is 100% verifiable, a family had come to the Haunted Mansion late one night and said, this ride was our son's favorite attraction. He passed away recently. And is it okay if we sort of go into the elevator, the stretch room by ourselves? And they're like, okay, go ahead. So they went into the stretch room by themselves, which created a gap between them and other people when they get in. And then when they got in, they boarded, and on the hidden cameras throughout the ride, there's someone monitoring that, and they could see them distributing some sort of dust throughout the graveyard scene. And so they're like, what should I do? And by the time they could shut down the ride, the people had just gotten off and were sort of leaving. So they called management, which called security, which called the hazmat crews. They shut down the ride, put an APB out to try and find what this family, before they were able to put together the story that it wasn't anthrax, it was the ashes of their child. So this is, at least once it 100% happened. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are ashes of many. I mean, by now they're probably filtered into the air conditioning system, but I'm sure many people have tried over the years.
Sure. Well, and so there are a lot of places as well that there's a lot that we see. I mean, we are bombarded, as you said, Tim, with so much kinetic energy all around us. Like we're overwhelmed, overstimulated. But there are also things that are hidden in plain sight to us, thinking about Imagineering details, thinking about the Utilidor. Not sure that, folks may know that Magic Kingdom is actually on the second floor. What we see is actually the second floor, and that there's a whole tunnel system underneath. Would you talk a little bit about that, David?
Yeah, and you've actually been in them, so you could probably speak even more about their, because people would always, before I ever investigated it from my Disney World. I was a Disneyland guy who didn't until 1995. That was my first trip to Disney World, in which I was like, whoa, this is like 100 Disneylands, and what's going on here? And I'd always heard there's like an underground city underneath the Magic Kingdom. And it's, as you can tell, it's tell us more about, it's not really, the whole thing's not underground, but they built out this tunnel system called Utilidors, and they built it on the ground floor of, what is, sea level or land level. And then they dug out the dirt for the lagoon out front and buried the tunnels with that, and then built the park on top of the tunnels so that it would be higher and the castle would be even larger than it actually is. And you could see it from, a mile away. Oh my goodness, there's the castle, this grand entrance. And that was their idea early on, to be able to get people and supplies from one end to the other of the park without, having to break that illusion that, you can't have trucks. You can't mess up the show by having a supply truck drive through Fantasyland or something like that. And they actually did some experiments with that construction beforehand. They're like, is this really going to work? And they tried it out at the time in the late 60s. They were building Pirates of the Caribbean, all of New Orleans Square, and a brand new Tomorrowland. So it didn't exist before, but when they rebuilt those areas, they dug underground areas to build tunnels and offices and storerooms and such like that in those two areas of Disneyland. And when that worked out so well, they're like, let's do it. But I guess it turned out to be so expensive to do. And they figured we have so much land that when they built Epcot, it was like, nah, we'll just put everything behind, and hopefully that'll work close enough. Everything has its price tag.
That's right. Utilidor, by the way, it stands for Utility Corridor. So it's one of those portmanteaus. That's where the name came from. And,
I had no idea what it was. I thought it was those little doors that they have you look for, that are like hidden everywhere.
No,
little doors.
Maybe I'm making that up. Like
there are doors that are hidden in plain sight. I mean, one of my other favorite things is the paint colors that they use. The blue, what is it? It's Go Away Green, and there's a color name for the blue that I can't remember. But they use it to essentially make you think that what you're looking at is invisible. It just kind of blends in with the background so that you don't see it. What about Club 33, David? Have you been there? You haven't been to the Utilidor. Have you been to a Club 33?
I have. I have been to Club 33 a number of times. Not recently. I used to be able to get into Club 33, you have to be a member of Club 33, or you have to have a member who will be willing to make you a reservation. And my former next door neighbor used to be a member. So he used to be able to make reservations for me. And so I was able to get in. This is many years ago, until he moved. And it's been a long time since, but it's this private club. It's costs thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to become a member, and then thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a year to pay your annual dues, and then many more dollars to have your dinner at the expensive restaurant, or they've since added a lounge to add capacity and get drinks. For a while, it was the only place in Disneyland where you could get alcohol. Now they've gradually added more and more places where you can do that. But yeah, it's a real neat place. And when I first started, it was one of the things that first got me interested in writing about Disney. was back when I was at Cal State Fullerton. So this would have been like shortly before that strike. I was doing my internship at a magazine called Orange Coast Magazine, and somebody did an article, the secrets behind Club 33. And I'd never heard of it at that point. And now it's, you go online and you can see pictures and whatnot. But it's it's a pretty nice, neat place that maybe one day some kind member will have pity on me and let me.
If anybody knows anybody, I'm happy to go anytime.
Yeah, we're available. The three of us are
totally.
Where is it precisely?
Great question.
It's in New Orleans Square. When you first turn down the street called Royale Street that leads to Pirates of the Caribbean, if you keep walking just past the exit to Pirates of the Caribbean, there's this nondescript green door with a little plaque that says 33 on it and a little intercom. That's the old door for Club 33. You used to ring that intercom, and then they'd go, yes. Because if you just knocked, they wouldn't say anything because people would come by and knock all the time. But it's supposed to be extremely exclusive. But if you ring the thing, they'll go, can I help you? And then you'd say the name of your party, and then they'd buzz the door open, and you'd go inside the little lobby where there was a staircase that wrapped around this very ornate glass elevator, and you'd go up to the second floor, which is where the restaurant was. About 10 years ago, they because that place was getting so, especially when they'd have a lot of people show up at one time, that teeny little lobby where there just wasn't room for all these people. So they took this really, really fun area that used to be public at Disneyland. It was called the Court of Angels, and it's for people who used to visit Disneyland many years ago. This was the place where the artists would do the, with their berets, would do their your portrait,
your caricature, right? Your silhouette. Or
well, no, this was not the caricatures. This is when they used to do nice, not watercolors, charcoal. Thank you, charcoal portraits there, and they did that for about 20 years. And they used to be in this little Court of Angels area, and they kicked all those guys out, and they put up a fence. And now that old Court of Angels with this gigantic ornate gate, that's the new entrance area for Club 33.
And there's now a Club 33 in every park in Walt Disney World too. Each of the 4 theme parks there. One in Adventureland and Magic Kingdom, one in Africa and Animal Kingdom, one in the America Pavilion at Epcot, and above the Brown Derby restaurant at Hollywood Studios.
I know a lot of the secret places at Epcot originally started as private lounges for the big money sponsors who sponsored Epcot when it first opened. That was their way of getting that place open, was we're going to sell multi-million-dollar sponsorships, 10-year sponsorships to these big companies. So they built these private places over all the big attractions, over the America, that was the one for American Express. They had their special area there. There was one over Spaceship Earth, which is now some sort of bar or something. They've reopened that. There was one in the land that over the Figment ride that is now a private lounge for the Disney Vacation Club members. There was one in the Living Seas area where they got their own private view of the big tank there, and most of the big pavilions had those sort of private areas, which they've turned into slightly different things nowadays.
And for a long time, Siemens was the sponsor of Spaceship Earth there. The bar is called Geo 82, brand new bar there at Epcot. It's great. It's really good. Adults only.
That was the old lounge for, I'm drawing a blank on, but whoever was the original sponsor before Siemens.
Yeah.
Well, Brent, all these Club 33s in Disney World, are they all a door with a 33 on them?
There's usually some sort of entrance, I believe, that like David said, very nondescript. Most people walk by it, don't even realize. But it does say there is that icon there, that Club 33 logo is there. So if you know where to look, you can find it. Yeah.
Wow, cool. We need to hit that up sometime.
Let's go, man. Let's go.
Road trip.
So Club 33 is real then. It's definitely real.
Club 33 is real. Yep. Well, what about, well, go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
Well, no, you're good, Brent. I was, if you weren't going to hit on it, I was going to ask, all this secrecy. Actually, before I get to that, I want to say we haven't brought this up yet, really. It seems like people are capable of getting away with some things at Disney, but I know for a fact they do have next level security, because I hate to admit this, but it was Christmas time. It was night. It was slammed. And my daughter was right behind me. And I mean, within an instant, I looked up and she was gone. I mean, gone. It was one of the most frightening moments of my entire life. And I kid you not, within seconds, Disney security was like, boom, they were there with us. I don't even know how they knew, but like, boom, they were there. So David or Brent, I mean, what do you know about Disney security?
What I know is that every time I walk through, I get pulled to go for some reason. There's something about me. I follow all of the rules, but every time I get pulled. And when I was a cast member, one of the things we would say, where we were trained to say, is that there was never a lost kid. It was always a lost parent. So as not to heighten the child's anxiety about being afraid. It was always a lost parent.
It dates back to the days of Walt. That was from the very first sign at the lost parent place on Main Street. Was that? I don't know if that was personally his idea, but that did date to day one.
Oh yeah, I mean, Brent, did you have anything else on hidden spaces and secrets for David?
I mean, the security piece too. There have been a number of YouTubers and other folks who try to find their way onto abandoned Disney properties like Discovery Island, River Country, etc. I don't know how much you know about that, but would love to hear any stories there that you have.
Yeah, River Country was the original water park at Walt Disney World. It was located near the campground. For a while, it was very popular because it was the only one they had, and it's sort of a rustic, the old swimming hole was how they would refer to it. And then as they started opening up these new, larger, fancier ones like Typhoon Lagoon and Blizzard Beach, it wasn't quite as popular, and it started being closed a lot. And then finally, after 9/11, they go, okay, we're done. It's closed. It's closed permanently. But they basically just walked away, and they left buildings, slides. It was, for the longest time, it was just like, it looked like this haunted water park because it was so much of the structure was still there. And for many, many, many years, up until I think the last couple of years, they've had a lot of construction there. So I don't know if anything is left of River Country anymore. There may be a little bit, but I don't think there's much, because they started expanding the campground, and they're currently building a new Disney Vacation Club resort right in that area. So I have to think that's all gone. Discovery Island was their first sort of nature preserve. They were trying in the early 70s, when Magic Kingdom first opened, okay, what sort of quasi-educational things can we build that we can pretend as part of this Epcot, so we don't have to build an actual city? And one of their ideas was Discovery Island, which was this teeny little island off in the waterway, off of the Contemporary and Campground, that sort of area right there. You'll pass by, if you ever take the boats that go to the campground and back to the park, you'll pass right by it. And it was sort of like this wildlife preserve where they got some interesting animals, mostly birds. They had different aviaries and paths, and it was sort of different themed like a shipwreck, and this fun little place that was not, I won't say it was a private ticket thing. So it was, I don't know how profitable or unprofitable it was. But it sort of plugged around. Whenever they could have an excuse to close it, they would. And then they finally got the excuse to close it in the late 90s when they opened up Animal Kingdom, because they figured, okay, now you want to see animals, you want to see nature, we could see, that times 1,000 over there. So they just sort of walked away from this island, and they pulled some of the stuff out of there, but a lot of it is just as it was when they left it almost 30 years ago, just completely overgrown with foliage and weeds and vines and such. So it's still a lot of if you ever went out there with a weed whacker, you could find the old paths and the old bird cages and some of the pieces of the shipwreck props and the docks, and a lot of it is still there. So next time you pass by that island, pull out your binoculars and see what you can see, because that is an interesting place that, as far as I know, is still somewhat similar to what it was.
But it's a great day to bring that up, being Earth Day today, April 22nd, as we record. And there's one of my favorite facts is that where Disney World is, only 1/3 of that land has been developed. Of the land that's owned, 1/3 can still be developed, and then 1/3 is intended to be left to just grow and be natural, be wild as well. And reminded me also, this is a fun story, Tim, you might like this. When they were designing Animal Kingdom, or pitching the idea for Animal Kingdom, which opened 28 years ago today, there was some grumbling about, well, how thrilling could a park with animals really be? And the story goes that Joe Rohde, who was the lead Imagineer for Animal Kingdom, coordinated a real life tiger in the boardroom, brought it in, and everybody was so afraid and so thrilled by having that tiger there that it got the green light. That's the story anyway. But yeah, one of those secrets.
I believe it.
Now I wonder, was that a real tiger or an animatronic tiger? And
I think the story is that it was a real one.
Yeah.
And did they try to get Siegfried and Roy? I wonder. Well, Brent, I had a question for you. What can you tell us about the backstage culture at Disney? Because it had to be quite a trip, and I mean, who would know better than you?
I remember going, Magic Kingdom has its own cafeteria underneath Magic Kingdom in the Utilidor. It's called the Mouseketeria. At least it was 20 years ago, the Mouseketeria. And I remember eating there on occasion, and all of the friends with princesses would sit together, because if you were a character, you were never actually the character. You were friends with the character. And so all of the friends with the princesses would eat together, and all the friends with princes would eat together, and so that was kind of fun. And I don't know a whole lot of wild stories from the Utilidor, the backstage areas. People are people, right? And so there's all of these like legends of like somebody in a Mickey Mouse costume with the head off smoking a cigarette, and I never encountered that. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. But it was just like a regular workplace, otherwise, at least for me in the short time that I was there. But they do exist, and you can actually see, and they're hidden in plain sight, but the doors to the Utilidor you can find all throughout the Magic Kingdom if you know where to look there. Yeah.
So were there backstage cliques, Brent? Like
definitely.
Tomorrowland people Absolutely. Hung out with each other, or just princesses, or
well, by nature of working closely together with folks, and it's almost like trauma bonding. The work, I remember grad nights in particular, where I was on the college program, which is a program for college students they say pad your resume. I'm not sure that it really worked for me in the way that I thought it would 20 years ago, but we would get the grunt shifts, the late night open until 4 a.m. shifts for grad night. And, after pounding some Red Bulls and enjoying life together, it was, we became lifelong friends. And so you can call it a clique, but I call it just dear friends. Some of whom are watching right now because we're still in touch.
Oh, great. Welcome to All Things Unexplained. And that's a great way to put it, Brent. We're joined tonight by the incredible David Koenig. Scan that QR code there on your screen. Visit him at Bonaventure Press. Pick up some of his books. We've got some to give away. As a matter of fact, if you subscribe and comment on some All Things Unexplained videos, particularly this one would be great. Our very scientific poll has concluded. Do you believe Disney parks are actually haunted? 100% of you say yes, Disneyland parks are indeed haunted. So thanks for participating in our poll there. David, one thing I wanted to ask you, and by the way, really appreciate your time being here tonight with us. One thing I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite, strangest incident that you have heard about at Disney?
Well, some of the goofy ones that I've heard about, the more unusual ones to me, involve those friends of the characters. And I can confirm that the first time I was ever backstage at Disneyland, I was there. They had the Old Timers Club. It's called the Golden Ears Club. They had me there. This is many, many years ago. They had asked me to come and do a talk, and they let me. Now you can't do it. They built so many other structures in the way, but before you used to be able to drive right into the backstage of Disneyland between Tomorrowland and Main Street, and they let me drive back there and park my car basically about the area where Walt Disney used to park his car, right there on the side of the Opera House there. And so I drove in and parked, got out of my car, and the very first thing I saw was Mickey Mouse with the head off, smoking a cigarette, just as you say. And the weirdest thing to me was a girl. And I'm like, wait, that's Mickey Mouse. That can't be. And so that was unusual.
You'd be surprised, by how many male characters are played by females and vice versa.
Yeah. And it's a lot of it is who fits the they only have a certain number of sizes of a goofy costume or whatever. So if you're the right size, that's what you're going to end up being. And had heard so many stories, folks I've interviewed about these characters, such as one night, and this goes back into the 60s, but there was one night where a guest came in who seemed to maybe have a little bit too much to drink, or maybe they were just off, but he was sort of stalking the Alice in Wonderland character, who in those days, there was no security around. Now you can't, none of the characters are allowed to go anywhere without a handler or someone in security. But back then they would just put them in teams of like 3. Like there'd be, okay, there's 3 characters from the Jungle Book. You go out and you go into that area. But this was 3 characters from the movie Alice in Wonderland. It was a White Rabbit, Mad Hatter, and Alice in Wonderland was this beautiful blonde girl. And this guy was like stalking her and kept asking her for a date. And finally, the guy who was in the Mad Hatter costume came up and sort of the old costume. If you look at the pictures, it's this gigantic hat, made out of rubber. And he came and kind of bumped the guy and said, back off, buddy, leave her alone. And the guy pulled out a knife and stabbed the Mad Hatter in the costume. Fortunately, the costume was so thick, it just went right into his hat. And then, the White Rabbit sprung into action and punched the guy out and jumped on him. And they called for security and finally dragged the guy out. But I mean, Alice was saved by her co-stars there, standing up against this crazy guy in the middle of the night. Now that could probably never happen, because not only do they have all this security and people watching, but this was back in the days when the park could get pretty empty late at night, and people could pull off all sorts of mischief.
I love that the White Rabbit sprung into action as any heroic superhero rabbit.
Yes, and it was the White Rabbit.
Should.
Yes.
That's amazing. Well, thanks so much for joining us tonight, David. Would you be up for a few listener questions we have here for you?
I would. I know someone's waiting for me, so I don't have time, but let's do a couple, sure.
All right, let's throw in just a couple here real quick. And let's see what we've got here for you. Yeah. So Kevin B says, David, what's your personal favorite Disney attraction, and has researching all the behind-the-scenes stories changed how you experience it?
Absolutely, it has changed how, because and I'm sure for anybody, once you go on an attraction so many times, you start looking for these little details, and that's how I first got interested in the behind the scenes. Had been to Disneyland so many times, and then started noticing, well, how does that work? Well, how does that work? You go to enough magic shows, you want to know how the tricks work. So it's certainly and since I've befriended and interviewed probably 1,000 cast members over the years, you sort of view the park through their eyes a lot. And I'm sure it's the same with people like Brent who've worked there. His trips are I'm sure far different than before he worked there, seeing both sides as a guest and what they have to go through and what they're dealing with. And my favorite attraction is the Jungle Cruise, because to me it's a ride that's always different, and it's the folks who work there are allowed to more be themselves, and sort of step out of character. Even though being a crazy skipper is their character, they could show more of themselves than most of the attractions hosts and merchandise hosts and stuff. They have to sort of be that duty and minimize what they can, how much of themselves they can be.
I think for me it's small world, because at that point I'm just ready to relax a little while, sit down, listen to some really nice music, and just ride around in a little bit. That's probably my favorite. Small world. So one more question here for you, David. This is from, let me pull it up here. Daniel K. What's the most surprising hidden detail in the parks that most guests completely miss?
Probably Club 33. If you don't know it's there, and you will 100% walk right past it, and then once you know it's there, you can never not see it. So I think that would be the top one. And for me personally, I love all the little touches and signs of things that used to be at the parks that aren't there anymore. Some of them are really obvious, like you go through Tomorrowland at Disneyland and the People Mover track, a ride that closed 30 years ago. The tracks are all still there, so it's like the lagoon for the old motorboat ride still there, so there's a lot of memories like that. And just walking down Main Street, there's so many, almost every shop has changed, yet has something remaining as a clue to what used to be there, whether that used to be, that was the old sign that's where they used to have the lockers, or the barbershop, or the butcher shop, or whatever used to be there. If you look close enough, there's always a little clue of what it was born as.
All right. Well, thanks, Unexplained Ones. Remember, the best way you can support the show is to hit that subscribe button, comment on the videos, and you'll be automatically entered into our giveaways. And we do have a very special giveaway for tonight. We've got a signed copy of The People versus Disneyland by David Koenig, and he's written a nice little thing in here at the beginning, and we would love to send that to one of you. So be sure to subscribe, hit comment on the video. And David, tell everybody how they can find out more about you, and got anything coming up? What's next for you?
Yeah, I've got some things in the works, none that are quite ready to announce quite yet. We'll leave them unexplained for the moment. But there will be plenty more about Disney and other topics. Easiest way to find out more about my books are at bonaventurepress.com. And the easiest way to buy them is probably just through Amazon or your favorite Barnes & Noble, whatever your favorite bookseller is.
Great. And Brent, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Final thoughts tonight, Brent?
Oh, just so grateful to get to talk to you, David, and meet you in this way. And if this has inspired anybody to explore the possibility of a trip to Disney parks, find me on Instagram at Let's Go with Brent, and we'll make it happen.
All right. And David, do you have a final thought for everybody tonight?
Yeah, I think we should do this again. I've got several thousand more crazy stories about Disneyland. I would love to share more of them sometime.
Let's do that. We'll bring you back when some of your new things are ready to announce, and we'll just do a whole bunch of crazy stories. I think that would be amazing. I want to give a shout out to all our listeners. We've got listeners around the world tuned in right now, and I think Disney does capture folks' imagination all over the world. But on behalf of Brent, Levy, and author David Koenig, I am Dr. Mounts. This has been All Things Unexplained, and I want to encourage everybody to take some time this week, get off your screens, head out into the woods, look up at the sky. You may not spot Mickey Mouse in the forest. You may not spot a Tomorrowland UFO in the sky, but you may just find something even more important out there, and that's yourself. Thanks, everybody. We really appreciate everybody for tuning in tonight. Thank you, Brent. Thank you, David. This has been fantastic.
Thank you both.
And good night, everybody. Here's Larry.
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's.
Did the CIA write Wind of Change by the Scorpions?
As humans busied themselves about the various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied.
Dr. Loeb, what percentage chance do you give it that you have indeed uncovered extraterrestrial or non-human technology?
With infinite complacence, people went about their affairs, yet across an immense ethereal gulf, intellects vast and unsympathetic threw their plans against us.
All of a sudden, a stick out of nowhere landed right in front of us, and there was no tree, nothing overhead. Something threw it at us.
Yeah. What's your hot take on Travis Taylor?
I've got an exclusive for you guys if you want it about the Alaska.
We do.
Okay.
Dr. Taylor was revealed to be the chief scientist of the UAP task force with the Pentagon.
All Things Unexplained.
So some of that, I think, sir, will save for closed session.